life cycles. And as you started to say there, Steve, we're actually going to build a deployment blueprint that lets us describe how to deploy the application. And that's built from 3 types of components. The first is application components, things like jar files, war files, and scripts. The second is services, things like application servers, web servers, database servers. And then the last piece is the logical templates, which are the actual VMs that the application will run on. So we can drag and drop these things and connect them. And that's how we build our configuration here. Then we save that blueprint, and we're ready to deploy it. So go over here to deployment. First thing we'll do is give this deployment profile name. Okay. And then we can walk through a very simple 4-step wizard for deploying it. First thing we do is choose the cloud environment to which we want to deploy. That could be a private cloud, a public cloud, be production, dev, test, whatever you want it to be. Our second step is to configure properties for the deployment, things that are specific to the deployment, like port numbers, environment variables, that sort of thing. Third step is the execution plan. The execution plan lets us build a sequence of events. So if you've got a dependency, like for example, your application server needs for your database server to be fully up and running before it starts, the execution plan is where you build that up. And the fourth step then is to review, make sure you've got everything that you want. And at that point, you're ready to go ahead and deploy.
Great, so what you just saw is the creation of a recipe or a blueprint for applications, and then allowing you to keep that in a cloud-independent way. And then when you do want to instantiate it, Bruce showed how you can set the parameters and make sure that it goes out there. Now the other part of closing this gap and really managing applications is on the performance side and monitoring them. So why don't we switch over to the other component of this suite and show what that means in the cloud world.
All right, so now that our application is out here running in the cloud, we can look at vFabric App Insight that gives us visibility into the application and how it's performing. In this case, we see a big red circle. It tells us there's probably something wrong with the application. And by mousing over it, we see that our tiers health is red. That means that one of the tiers in our application is having a problem. We drill down, we see our database is fine. Our web tier is yellow, but our app tier is red. So we can look at the topology and actually go and drill down into that application. And we get some interesting information here. We see that our error percent is 100. That means every transaction is an error. So these things aren't CPU, disk, memory, and those kind of metrics. These are application metrics or transactions as experienced by the end users. Our throughput is 0. This means our application is down, even though our infrastructure is perfectly fine. So again, this is a case of pulling in a tremendous amount of information, filtering it down to a very obvious indication of a problem.
Great, thanks very much, Bruce.